All right, guys. So hopefully we are now live. So I'm going to, as per usual, wait a minute just to get confirmation in the stream. So if you guys can let me know if you hear me speaking and if the sound is good, we'll get started. All right. So it looks like the sound is probably good. So if there ever is an issue with sound, let me know and we can go from there. So first of all, I hope everyone had a nice Thanksgiving this year. For those of you who celebrate Thanksgiving, I know it might have been difficult for some who maybe didn't see their family. I ended up having it with a smaller, some members of my family, but a smaller gathering than usual due to world events. But it was really nice and nice to have a few days off and see some family. So the plan for today's stream is going to be to do what we did last time because I think that worked really well, which is I'm going to start at the top of the chat and I am going to start with answering some questions that people want me to answer. So if you want to start putting your questions in, you're welcome to, and I'm going to go one at a time through those questions, and then probably about 30 or 40 minutes from now, we're gonna switch and I'm gonna stop answering questions and I'm gonna jump to the bottom and we're gonna sort of have a conversation on the subjects that we talked about. And this also gives the people who got here first and asked their questions, it gives them sort of first priority, and then we can discuss some of the things that they brought up, and people are free to ask me kind of new questions at the bottom. I may not answer every question, but we'll sort of have a free-flowing conversation with at the bottom of the chat. All right. So I hope everyone is doing well. It's nice to see some familiar names here. Really appreciate you all joining me today. I've really been enjoying the streams, and like 100 to 200 people just seems like such a nice amount where we can like engage and have interesting conversations, but it's not like an overwhelming flood of information. So I hope you guys have been enjoying them too, and that it's been like the most useful way to run this YouTube channel. All right. So Pokemon Academy asks, hi Jake, when was Pokemon at its lowest? When did it start picking up again? Which sets had the lowest print run from the e-readers to Heart Gold, Soul Silver? Okay. So a few different questions here. So when was Pokemon at its lowest? So I would say sort of the modern hot market for Pokemon really started in around 2016 with Pokemon Go. And that's really when a lot of people came back in and the interest really started growing. And I think that shift was sort of the big shift that happened, probably the biggest shift outside of the shift we're seeing potentially right now. And so when a lot of people came in, there was a lot of heat around that time, and then the market kind of came back down, and a lot of cards, particularly first edition base set holos and particularly the commons and uncommons and rare cards, like a lot of the cards actually halved in price after that big boom period where a lot of people came in. And then for the last 2 years or so, and that having in price for a lot of cards, not all cards, certain cards didn't go down that much, and we may see some of that same stuff happen this time around. But what happened was a lot of cards retraced over a year or so, and then sometime into 2017, and this is how I got so lucky was I just happened to like get interested in Pokemon again and find my old collection and come back in the hobby in around 2017 as like a serious collector and wanting to have, go after really chase cards, this sort of thing. Um, uh, so I really got lucky and came in not even realizing it. And eventually when I did my research, I started to realize this, but that when I came in was actually the low point of sort of the modern era of Pokemon. So of course I could have been in it all along, and I have friends who paid $700 for a PSA 10 first edition base set Charizard, and that's now worth 300,000 or so, right? Who only paid $700 for it. So there are those people in the hobby who are selling their cards right now. But of sort of the modern people, I came in at a really good time. I was very aggressive. I really felt that the pop reports were really low. I came into the hobby. I did research. I saw a decline, and then I saw no growth really, or very slight growth. And the market felt very steady. It felt very solid. And so I was very comfortable putting a lot of money into it. All right. Now I would say at the start of this year, things really started to shift, and then they accelerated about 6 months ago, and then they even more accelerated when Logan Paul came in. And that is sort of the history of the last few years. There have also been ups and downs over the previous 20 years, but sort of the modern era, that's sort of the timeline to think about. So in terms of the sets that have the lowest print run from e-readers to Heart Gold, Soul Silver, we don't know. It's all speculation. It's part of what makes investing in Pokemon and anything Pokemon quite risky, is we just don't know how much was printed. We don't know how much is out there. We don't know how much is going to surface over the time. So the best we can do is we can look at the current pop reports. We can use our own experience by just seeing how much stuff comes for sale, and we can look at price. So things that are generally very expensive and have been expensive for a long time, a lot of those cards are probably already going to have been graded and been on the market, at least compared to stuff that has always been historically very cheap. Now, I do think people run the risk of thinking that even expensive cards, there still are every set card in the hobby, and every card in the hobby really. Because even in trophy cards, we're seeing extra copies come out, and we're seeing Japanese sellers like Pocono, for people who are in the know, come out with these extra copies. But there's going to be growth in every card. We're a very young hobby. I really stress patience with this sort of stuff, and it's right to question and not be sure how much these population reports are going to grow. That being said, as I've said on this channel, my personal opinion from seeing things right now, the best guess that I have, generally speaking, e-readers, not a lot of any of those sets. EX Nintendo era, not a lot, very low. Heart Gold, Soul Silver as compared to Nintendo EX era, I don't really know how much more was printed, or if it's just newer products, so more was out there. It was cheaper, so it was easier to get, and people were selling it, and it wasn't as coveted. But I've certainly seen more of those boxes. But what'll be interesting with some of the more middle eras of Pokemon is now that those cards are becoming more expensive. For example, cards like Level X cards, some of those cards have only 2 PSA 10 in the pop. So clearly they're very difficult to grade because they have quite a few more 9s, but they still have very few 9s. And I know that there are many of those cards out there in the world and printed. And I think because PSA has been so slow to grade, and all of this growth has not been reflected yet in all the people who've sent in cards now, because there's been a lot of growth and sent it in like bulk submission and these sorts of things. Those cards have not yet come back, have not been yet added into the PSA system. So I would really stress caution with, we do not know. Those pop reports could skyrocket, absolutely skyrocket, from 2 to 3 to 50, 60, 70, 100. Like we really don't know. There could be businesses out there who've been hoarding this sort of stuff, this more middle age, because maybe it never sold. They just had it sitting, and now they've decided to grade it, or they're selling the booster boxes. So I just be careful, because there's a lot that's not known. It's part of why first edition base set is generally the safest, and I would say the Neos probably, then second's probably the Neos. is because I think that most of that, or a lot of that in gem mint condition, particularly the hollows, have been graded compared to other things. But even those, as I said in my last video, all of those PSA populations could easily double in the next 10, 20 years. So we'll have to see how they're absorbed over time, and also all these people who are grading these cards, are they collectors who want to hold them, or are they going to look to flip it into the market? So a lot of unknowns. So I hope that that's helpful. So again, a lot of that stuff, and I think the most useful thing is you can do that research yourself by looking at pop reports, by looking at what people are selling online. Okay. All right. Nice to see some of you guys. Nice. Hey, Jacob. Nice to see you, Jacob H. With K. Juliana says most of the cards from Harkle's silver sets weren't very useful for competitive play. Yeah, Joe could probably give you some more insight onto that. I know he was telling me that I think that's the era that you started, Joe, and I think you pulled like the Uxie level X or something you were telling me a long time ago, and that was very playable. But yeah. Muhammad Mukadi asks, please talk about Japanese cards and especially promos and what you think the future is for them. If I acquire them, do you think it will be hard to sell over time? I see a lot of potential in them. You? ? So I think that it depends what we're talking about. So I think that modern Japanese promos are cool, a lot of them, but there are a ton, there could be a ton of them printed, and a ton of them in the world, and a ton of them in very gem mint condition, as compared to cards like the play promos, the fan club cards. Some of these cards that had these more interesting releases where they were a lot more difficult to get. Those cards were released to people who were able to get enough points in order to get it. A lot of these cards are being released kind of generally to the public, and people get hundreds of copies and then grade them all. So it depends what we're talking about here. I think that what you have to look for is, does the art really, really stand out? So for an example of that, they have tons of those Pikachu cards right now, and they're beautiful, but is the art really going to stand up in 20 years? If they're making 20 years of those, are they really going to go up that much in value? Are people really going to want to be collecting every single one if there are hundreds and hundreds of them? How many people are going to want them? Those sorts of things you have to consider. But like the Scream promos really stood out for me, but those are not rare. Like there are a lot of them. There are a lot of them in the world. We don't know how rare they are. Be interesting to see over time how rare those things are compared to like the Masaki promos. Masaki promos, we estimate they're between like 25,000 to 40,000 of each of those in the world. Is it a release like that, or are there a lot more of them than that in the world? And even if there are a similar amount, those Masaki promos, the history of those Masaki promos, the age and the old back, I think will make them more historic. When you think about long-term investing, if you really want to hold these cards, you have to think what are people going to value in 20 years, not what are people going to value now. What are they going to value in 10, 15, 20 years if you're going to hold things? If you're going to flip things, then it's more about what's hyped right now. What do you think is overvalued? What do you think is going to be the next overvalued thing? Okay, and that's a very different mindset to be in. So when you ask me, do I see a lot of potential in them in terms of long-term, mixed, and it really is going to depend on the card. But that's the stuff you should be thinking about. I think I definitely see people online overvalue them, and on YouTube talking about how great they are and that they're always going to go up, and not talking about how many there are going to be, and giving you more of the fuller context and the fuller picture to think about with those. The thing is Pokemon makes tons and tons of promos. If there weren't so many promos, then I think that they would be more valuable potentially, because they would be it'd be easier to get them all, type of thing, or more collectible as a set, and there just wouldn't be as much competition. You're going to need a lot of demand and interest to keep them going up over time. All right. So Joe asks, top 2 arts from each of the Neo sets, please. Oh man, top 2 arts. So, okay, from Neo Genesis, I'm gonna go Lugia, and I like the Feraligatr. I'm forgetting which numbered Feraligatr. It's like the more plain. It's the rarer one, the harder one to get in PSA 10. I forget which number it is because there are 2 of each of those starters in the set. Those are probably my 2. I really like that Feraligatr, and then the Lugia is arguably the best looking card. You know, probably with that Charizard card from base. I think the best designed card, 2 of the best designed cards in the entire, early. Let's see, Neo Discovery. I'm gonna go. I like the Houndour a lot. I think that's a really cool, underrated card. Also, really, really hard to find. I've always really liked the art in that card, and I just think it's kind of interesting and cool that they gave Houndour a beautiful holo like that. So I'll choose that, and I like the Umbreon. The Umbreon's beautiful, and then the Espeon is really nice too. But the Umbreon with the moon in the background, that Umbreon card is phenomenal. The Espeon's really nice too, though. I like a lot of the arts from those sets. Neo Rev, definitely got to go Shining Gyarados, 100%. That's like one of the best looking cards in the entire hobby. The second best, I don't like the Shining Magikarp as much, although that's also a great one. From the arts, I'd probably go the Ho-Oh. I think is the best art from the rest of that set. And then from Neo Destiny, best 2 arts. I'm gonna go Shining Tyranitar. I really like that Shining Tyranitar card. And there are a lot of good arts from this set. And then I think I'm gonna go Ty Light Arcanine, Light Dragonite. I really like the arts of both of those cards a lot. Some of those light cards are pretty cool. Great question, Joe. And if anyone wants to share yours in the comment section, I have a discussion about it. I think that it's always cool to hear what people's opinions are on the art. One question I like to ask people is, if money wasn't an option and you put it outside, like what like listing your favorite Pokemon, like cards, like what would they be? What Pokemon would you put on it if money wasn't an option? And just trying to think about the art and what Pokemon you actually respond to the most and like the most, and separating that from the financial aspect. All right, Basic Trainer asks, should I sell my Jungle Eevee for $7 or hold for growth? So I would need quite a bit more information. So I don't know if you're talking about a first edition, probably for $7. That wouldn't be a first edition. Maybe you're thinking of just a normal common card. I'm not sure if you can sell that for $7. I don't really know what the going rate is. If it's an unlimited, Eevee from Jungle, I don't see a future in that. Even if it's really in PSA 10, I don't think it's going to be that coveted. It will have some value, but I think that there will be enough first edition, and I think over time, I think people are going to want the PSA 9 first edition over the Unlimited. That's just how I've always felt. It's always what I've operated under. I would much rather have the tiniest speck of white on the much rarer first printing of a card than a card without any whitening, without that lack of white. That's a completely different card that doesn't have that first edition stamp. That's of a completely different printing much later. So, always been my feeling. And I think over time the market will reflect that over time. I think we're in a bit of a stage of grading mania where we're overvaluing grading. And I'm a big fan of grading. I love the chase. I really enjoy it. And I've been thinking about making a video on this, but I think that there's a little bit of a mania on putting the importance of the grade over the importance of the history of the card and the gorgeousness of the card. And I think and we're really seeing that in Modern, where people going after 10s of just random cards that they don't like, and just because it's a 10, and that gem mint feeling. And I think that over time that's not going to hold up very well. So I'm getting some nice compliments in the chat. Thank you guys that they're here for good, reasonable, balanced conversations on Pokemon. I'm glad you guys feel that way. I try to do that. Been trying to do it the whole time. Juliana says, I love the Houndour and Yanma hollows from Mia Discovery. Yeah, I'm with you. Yanma is definitely cool too. So many great hollows. All right. Okay. Blue Goose Collectibles asks, have you seen the Everway WotC TCG? No, I am not familiar with it. I'm not familiar with that. I have done some research on like different Wizards of the Coast, what they like sets that they printed around the time of Pokemon to see if I wanted to get into any of them or be interested in any of them. Yeah, but that one I'm sure it was on the list. There were a lot of Wizards of the Coast's dead TCGs. It just wasn't one that stood out to me when I was looking. So I got a super chat. Thank you, Muhammad. Muhammad asks, thanks. I meant Fan Club Misaki and Play promo. Oh, okay. In your original question. Yes, I think that, so the Play promos I think are going to be quite a bit rarer than the Misaki cards if I had to guess. So the Misaki cards, the thing about the Misaki cards is they had a lot of damage on them. So there's something called the Misaki dent or the Misaki bend, and it's because the Misaki cards were given to you they were given in a like a piece of cardboard, and they were slid into the cardboard under like slits to hold it. It damaged the majority of those cards, and so that's part of why like 9s and 10s have such a premium. It's very difficult to find those, and most of them get 6s and 7s even if they're perfect otherwise, just because of that dent. So that's part of why the 9s and 10s really get a premium. The fan club. Oh, sorry, you were asking about Play promo, not fan club. The Play promo. The Play promos are good. The Play promos, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how many get graded over time. I do see them in gem mint condition occasionally. I do think people still have them. I still have some that are gem mintish. Some unbelievable arts though from those Play promo cards. I think like the Lugia EX and the Ho-Oh EX cards are amazing. The Mewtwo is a great card, but it's overrated, guys, compared to some of the other cards in the set. It got overrated because it was hyped up by some YouTubers, I think, and then people jumped on the bandwagon. Beautiful, amazing card, but the value of that card and the Daisuke Master Scroll both got hyped up and are overvalued, in my opinion, in this market compared to some of those other cards in terms of gorgeousness of the art, in terms of rarity, in terms of those sorts of things. So I don't know if the market will ever correct, and there might just be, too many. The people who bought those might just hold them and not ever want to sell for lower. There may not be enough of them for it to ever come down, but just to give you guys my honest opinions. And then the Play promo gold stars. Those cards are extremely rare, extremely hard to find. They do have the same art as the ones in English and as the ones in Japanese that are the set cards. So they're not. I feel mixed about them. I don't think they're worth the amount that they are unless you really love Play promos and want to complete the Play promo set, just because it has the same art of that relatively more affordable gold star card. But everything is so expensive, everything is so rare, and at least those gold stars in English or Japanese from those packs are also very difficult to get. So those are my feelings on those. All right, I'm gonna jump back into the question. So let's see where we are here. So Noah says, I love the art and rarity of Call of Legends shiny legend cards. So where do you see... Sorry, Noah says, I love the art and rarity of Call of Legends shiny legend cards. So where do you see these cards going? Low PSA pops, very low print run, and amazing shinies. Are they the next Gold Star hype cards? So they they're not gold star cards. Gold star cards were in a number of sets. And they're a more foundational piece of Pokemon history and a foundational piece of the first ever Nintendo era. And that will always be the first ever Nintendo era. And that's always going to have quite a bit of premium. That being said, I think that they're great and that they're better than certain more modern options. I do think they run the risk of being trapped somewhere in the middle in a time period that wasn't that popular, and that they will never be respected or appreciated for as cool of art that they are. That being said, I still like them. I have a number of them. I think that I'm not sure what value they're going for right now. They were very, very underpriced when I was buying them. I'm sure, like with everything, they've probably gone up a lot in value. So I know I would check to see how much they've gone up in value. You know, if they've gone up in value 5-10 times, which a lot of cards have in those middle eras too, that's in line with what we've seen from a lot of vintage, and how much vintage has gone up too. So really, they actually are being appreciated and are appreciating in the same sort of way as a lot of things. So I just would keep that in mind. As far as the low PSA pops, part of the reason why they're probably going to be lower PSA pops, part of the reason is that those cards were not as valuable and not as sought after as Gold Star cards, so not as many of them were sent in. That being said, I think that there won't be a lot of them, and if you look at the Gold Star pops are very low because those sets were not printed a lot, and it was extremely hard to pull a Gold Star. And so you will see some of that with the Shiny Legends, particularly as those booster boxes get more expensive and it becomes more expensive to open those. And so less new gem mint come on the market, combined with people who do have those mint cards finally grading them because the value's there. We'll get a more fully fleshed out pop report, and then we can compare that period to the Gold Star period. What'll be great is when we get to a point in the hobby, 10, 15 years, when we feel more confident and comfortable with these numbers, and we really see the relative rarity, and prices at that point are going to correct. And that's something that everyone needs to keep in mind, is that right now I think part of it's because there's a lot of new people and they don't know they just look at the prices and assume that that's the correct price, rather than looking at like how much rare is that set than this set, or this card than that card. 10 to 15 years from now, when everyone is a lot more experienced, who's serious and continued it and is into it, and where everyone and where the pop reports are really fully fleshed out, and it's pretty rare that new cards are being graded from a lot of these sets, rather than new cards being graded every day from them. That's when we're going to see more of those corrections. And we've seen that in Pokemon over time. So in Fossil and Jungle, for example, there were cards 4 years ago, there were different cards that were the most expensive in those sets. And then once people realized that some of the cards were actually harder to grade, because enough of them were graded, and much harder to grade, different cards became more or less valuable. Like the Lapras became more valuable because people over time realized how difficult it was to grade, and they didn't know that initially. So seeing these patterns, being able to predict them and understand them, knowing which cards to buy in the set due to that, and being able to accurately predict which cards are the pop's going to grow the most, is going to give you the edge, and you're going to be the one taking advantage of that, rather than buying the more expensive card right now that shouldn't be more expensive. And again, it's what I preach on this channel, is you have to really, really know your stuff. And even when you really know your stuff to the best of your ability, and you're looking at it all the time and you're talking to people all the time, there's still a ton of guessing. I recently joined a new Discord group with a friend of mine, and people in that Discord group are some of the most experienced people in this hobby, who've been in the hobby for 20 years, and I learn things from them, different interesting like variations on like glossy, non-glossy, original sort of Japanese releases, and they don't know many things too, because there's so much not known, even people who are extremely knowledgeable and have been in the hobby for 20 years. So there's a lot to learn. And that's part of why you have to be really careful, frankly, with who you listen to online, and people really claiming things very strongly that they don't know and that there isn't evidence for. All right. Alvin's Gallery says, how are you and your collection goals going? Love from the UK. Thanks, man. I'm doing really well. As I was saying in the beginning of the stream, really enjoyed Thanksgiving, and things are going, as well as they could be. I would say, during this time, and really I feel very fortunate and lucky with the hand I've been dealt at the moment. How are my collection goals going? So I've been working mainly on non-Pokemon goals at the moment. I've been working on Yu-Gi-Oh! Bandai. I've been working on some Dragon Ball Z stuff, some cheaper, less expensive, but also pretty rare, difficult chase things, very hard things to find in some other TCGs, and Middle Earth. I've been buying some Middle Earth. So I've been working more on those goals. And in terms of my Pokemon goals, I did buy one card, which I'll show eventually. I bought a Scyther BGS 9.5 Scyther Hollow First Edition from this latest auction block at PWCC. First time I bought a card from PWCC since all the hype started, because they usually have like ridiculous prices, but I think that card slipped through. I think it looks like a PSA 10 to me, so I'm going to get it cross-graded from a 9.5 to a 10. So it means I got a PSA 10 for about $420, hopefully. That's my hope. So that moves me closer to my collection goal in Jungle, which is to get all of the hollows in PSA 10 First Edition. Eventually, I may never do it now, because I don't feel comfortable paying some of the prices, at least in this time. If these prices hold in 10 to 20 years, the prices are similar, and I really feel like they're stable, I would be much more comfortable buying in at these prices, and feeling comfortable that they would hold or continue to go up. Louis Underwood says, which cards do you currently have displayed? So I have a bunch of my Worlds promo cards right now displayed, although I'm probably going to move them out, and I'm going to put up some of my Yu-Gi-Oh! Stuff that I've been working on, the Yu-Gi-Oh! Bandai cards, some of the progress I've been making soon. Eusebia says that he's at work, but listening when you can. I appreciate that. I know that with these streams, it's sort of, I'm going to try to do them, 3 p.m. most Sundays, but once in a while, maybe I should change the time. And if you guys want to leave me comments in the comment section after the video, you can say, if this time really doesn't work for you, and possibly I can also pick another time, and maybe we can change it a bit, just so that people who never get to come, never get to be a part of this because the time I've chosen, do get a chance. I think that would be cool. DNA Level C asks, do you think the Golden Border Meowth is still underrated? It's a very niche card. I don't think that card was super important in a lot of like children's lives. Like I kind of remember it as a child. I do own one in PSA 10. I think I bought it for like $40 or $30 because the PSA pop was very low, and I felt like that was a very good value. So no one was interested in it at that time. I'm sure it's going for a lot more now. I don't follow that card closely. A lot of those promos are pretty niche. When you think about those promos, you want a promo that's really going to stand out and is really going to, even from those WotC areas, at least it has the WotC vintage feel to it, and that makes it stand out as opposed to anything modern. But did people really want it when they were a child? Did they really have a connection to it? Was it a chase card? How much of that hype is genuinely real and driven, or is it just driven by the fact that it's fairly hard to get in PSA 10, and kind of thinking through all of that. So got another super chat from the Flex Gods. Hey man, nice to see you here. Been enjoying your channel. Congratulations on what you've been doing over there. FlexCause asks, thoughts on Versus Series vending, best place to find info for beginners on Japanese-only cards, origins, how they were released, print runs, etc., etc. So the best place to go for that information is Bulbapedia, and making connections and asking people directly who have been in the hobby a long time very specific questions about niche things. And so I think that what you can do is you can build relationships with people over time, and people who you trust, people who really have dealt in that stuff, to get that good information. But a lot of that information is on Bulbapedia, so I would always check first on Bulbapedia. And they tend to be really good with release dates, and Not so much print runs. We tend not to know print runs. I'm going to do a video, as I keep saying on this channel, about trophy cards and giving you guys more of a rundown of how many we think certain ones exist, which I think will be helpful. As far as Versus Series, love Versus Series. I was trying to collect that in every card in PSA 10. I was buying those up as much as I possibly could, grading them very cheaply. I saw one go, like a Jolteon, go for about $100. That's a lot, but again, it was going for about 30 to 40 before all of the spikes. So that card has only doubled in price instead of 10 times like certain other cards have been going. So there's probably more value there than in other things when we're talking about value, but there's also a reason those cards have not gone up as much, and that's because there just isn't the demand, and there'll never be the demand for those cards compared to Wizards of the Coast, particularly during down periods, probably. Although you would think the one counter argument to that would be that like people who do stay in the hobby are actually going to get bored of just, Wizards of the Coast English and aren't going to move to things like Versus Series that have unique arts. What's so great about Versus Series and vending is that there are unique arts. There are lots of, all of Versus Series are unique arts, and lots of the vending cards are unique arts. The vending some of those vending cards also did come out in other sets all during that time period. Not sets, but like the starter kits and things like that. So you have to do your research there and understand how that might affect them over time. But yeah, so what I would say is, really, really love the art, Versus Series in particular. I think there's so many fantastic, phenomenal, underrated arts from that set, not just the holos. Also just I always really liked the Houndoom. I think the Houndoom's incredible. Obviously the Charizard, maybe the best Charizard art in the hobby, right? Like we could throw it out there. Obviously the base set, the Crystal, like those are up there too, but, unbelievable art. That card would be worth so much more money if it wasn't a common card. So thank you for the super chat. Definitely a good question. Hopefully that was helpful. Cardinal Gaming says, much love, Jake, the most level-headed and thought-out takes in the hobby. I really appreciate that. So I think that I've watched some of your videos, and I've really liked... I believe that you own a correct me if I'm wrong, if you're still here, Cardinal Games, and you guys should check this channel out. I've really enjoyed just giving a little bit of your insight. I think you own an LGS store, and you've just been giving some of your insight on some of the modern, how much you're getting. I think I watched a video recently of you talking about how much product you're getting of some of these modern sets versus maybe Walmart or some of these other places, and going through the distributor process, how much you're a distributor, that you only work with one distributor, how much they get, how much they give to you, do other distributors get priority to some of the bigger places, and the frustrations there. And that's always really interesting, because that's a side. I have friends who run stores, and I do check in with them and talk to them, so I get some of that information, but that's the side of the hobby that I've never owned a brick and mortar store. I haven't done that sort of work. So I always look to these guys for great insight. So that's a channel I would check out. That channel and the Danny Phantom channel, I think are I've found very kind of similar, very like down to earth, honest, helpful advice for people in particular who are looking. And you may have vintage information too as well, but the videos I saw looking into sort of modern and what's going on with the product, which of course so many people in this hobby are interested in and focused on right now. So great to see you here. Gus said, I was wondering what your thoughts were regarding the retraces. Yes, cards are retracing, but the prices could eventually go back up. Price history exists because someone paid for an item, right? Or not. So I'm not sure what you mean by price history exists because someone paid for an item. So price history, like on PokemonPrice.com or on eBay, things exist there that were not paid for. So just because things were sold, look like they were sold, does not mean that they actually were sold. We don't know the answer to that. The only way to really know that it wasn't sold is if you see the item relisted with the exact same number. That's the only way to really know. That's why I also think you have to be careful, sounding the alarm too much on certain things, because really the prices just may have not spiked as much, and some of those higher ones were shill bid, cards that really didn't sell for some of those high prices. So some of the retraces might not be real, or might not be authentic. That being said, clearly, I think some of it probably is, based on what I'm seeing. I think we are seeing retraces on certain cards. I've seen it on some Rocket, Dark Charizard. My general thought on the retraces is way too early to quantify them. We should have patience, calm. They're inevitable, but they may not be happening right now. They may not be happening as severely as we think. As we worry, they might have been more severe. This might be the start of a huge reach of, an extreme retrace. So just to have the knowledge that all of those things are possible, what I was doing on this market for the last 3 months or so, right, was that everyone that I saw was basically saying, all of the big channel, the bigger channels in particular, but a lot of smaller channels popping up all over the place with titles like how to make $1,000 a month, a week, flipping cards, which is, these are like, those are like get rich quick scams often type of thing. And, of course it's possible to do that. And it was possible to do that in this market, but it's day trading, and there are a lot of people who lost thousands of dollars doing that right now because they bought at those higher prices potentially and looking to flip, and now they're stuck with those cards, and it may not go up. So I think that I'm gonna preach. If things start going down, you're gonna hear me. I still believe in Pokemon. I feel very strongly about the product. I feel very strongly about my connection with it. I feel very strongly about a number of people's connections with it. The question will be how much, and this is what I've been saying for months right now, right? How many people right now have been buying on credit? How many people don't have jobs and have been using their unemployment checks, trying to flip it and get rich, and now are going to be stuck with massive amount of inventory that they're going to have to liquidate in order to pay their bills, basically. How many of these people are going to stay in the hobby or just leave? There are a lot of people right now who, even collectors, who were collectors for a long time, who now have become businesses. I've talked to a number of people who, some of my friends who have started businesses in Pokemon during this period. Again, it's that now that's leveraging themselves. Now they have more at risk. So, they need to make money. They need to continue to make profit. They need to bring in cash. So all of those types of things, when you see more people move to businesses and more people move away from collecting, that's the stuff that causes cards to go down in value. Okay. And people should check out, it's a few months too late, and I think it's ironic because Rudy had a video saying sort of like the exact opposite a few weeks ago. But Rudy came out with a video basically talking about what I've been talking about on this channel for a while, which is just that be careful flipping Modern, basically, and went through some of the stuff he's been hearing. I've been hearing this stuff for months. Rudy isn't into Pokemon. He's really a Magic person, and he peripherally is into Pokemon, so I think that's part of why he's just not as plugged in to what's been happening. But you should check out that video. It summarizes it well, if you guys like Rudy from Alpha Investments. Brad Ray says, hey buddy, how do you, so I'm going to answer questions till 4 o'clock, guys, and then I'm going to go to the bottom of the chat. All right, let's do that. Brad Ray says, hey, buddy, how do you think commons and uncommons are from WotC? Light play to near mint. I think that they have very little value. So these are cards that I think are most appropriately probably should be being sold for $60, $70 complete sets of uncommons and commons for sets, if that. If, not being graded. I think people are wasting their money. I think those cards aren't worth as much as the grading. I think if you grade a 7 unlimited common card, PSA 7 common card, you're actually losing quite a bit of money on that card. That card's probably should be worth $1 or $2, given how many there are, if that. Right, and I think $1 or $2 in this climate. I think in lower down periods that you'd be lucky to get 25 cents, 50 cents even for some of that vintage if it's really in 5 condition, which is pretty rough, 5-6 condition. So I think that there's been this YouTuber influence of a lot of new people who haven't been in the hobby for, they're finding their collections and they're saying they're finding a Charmander and they're saying this card's worth $5,000 and it's like an unlimited beat up Charmander from their binder. I think that's pushing some of that out there. And although most people I think are like, that's clearly not worth that, it makes them think, well, at least it's worth like $10, $15, this beat up Charmander I had. And that's a lot of money for that card. I have a ton of those cards, and people have a ton of those cards, right? It's just sitting around. Justin Woolridge asked, do you think that prices of vintage Pokemon cards will ever shift more heavily toward the cards that are more playable in their respective eras? Will playability be taken into consideration? I don't think that will ever happen. I think it's established at this point that it's collectors and it's about collectability. I think that that's already been established into the market, basically, in the sense that that there are some people who play the game, or a decent amount of people played the game as a kid, and so maybe they have a favorite card, a Hitmonchan or something from base set, or Chansey, or one of these more like playable cards, and they put greater value or sentimental value at least on it because it was playable for them when they were a child. The one thing that could change it a little bit would be if they started doing, like, if it got very popular for adults to play tournaments of the vintage Pokemon. The problem is it's like I don't think it's a very good game, the vintage Pokemon. So whereas Magic the Gathering is a phenomenal game and an extremely fun and interesting and competitive game. Even the old sets, the vintage is very fun, I think, for people. So I think there are a lot of reasons why that's not going to happen in Pokemon. VVV asks, what's your hope and thoughts for promos for the 25th anniversary? Given the promos that came out for the 20th anniversary, is there anything you expect to see? Nothing that I'm like particularly hoping or expecting to see, honestly, right now. I'm not super hyped on the 25th. Maybe I should be, and but I'm just kind of like, we'll see if they come up with some really cool cards. I'll be excited to look at those. Yeah, I don't really have anything. I mean, I think it'd be cool if they did, not necessarily a promo, but if they did sort of like something with Neo, the second gen. If they really featured the second generation a lot, would be cool. Pokemon asks, what are your thoughts on Legendary Collection reverse holos? I like them the most visually for me. I've noticed a huge print line issue when opening packs as the print lines affect grades. Yes, the print line, if you have a print line on it, generally it is going to bring it down to at least a 9. It's one of the biggest common things on those cards, and I also have some very pristine, reverse legendary cards that wouldn't get 10s because of those print lines, I've always liked the reverse holos. Rafi thinks they're terrible and calls them throw up on a card. So, and I think that there people do have different opinions and not everyone likes them. I like them though. I think that they're pretty cool. I enjoy owning them. I own quite a few of them. I tried to complete most of that set in 9, although I gave up pretty quick. And I think I probably have like 50 or 60 9s and maybe like 5 or 6 10s only. I mostly just got it for 9s because I just didn't want to spend the money for the 10s, and the 9s were going for like really cheap at the time. Chat BN1992 asks, have you considered selling certain cards that feel are overpriced to buy rare cards? Yes, and I have sold some. And I think that that is the move. right now, to be completely honest with you. That is, you know, at the end of the day, nobody knows, but if you look at a lot of trophy cards, certain trophy cards are overvalued right now, but there are other trophy cards that are probably not overvalued, that have not moved up in value that much or nearly as much of some of these other set cards, and these set cards more and more are going to come onto the market, and the people who actually stay in Pokemon are going to get bored of the set cards and are going to move to the rarity and the top of the mountain, because it's where every hardcore collector goes. They go to rarity, they go to chase. Once you've completed what you can, you move on to what's rare, what's more exciting, what's, you know, now the one argument to that, or the one counter to that, would be like, well, a lot of people, it'll just be too expensive to ever complete Wizards of the Coast, so I'll just always be working on Wizards of the Coast. And I think that will be true for some people, but I also think that others will just give up on Wizards of the Coast because some of it's just too expensive, or they'll just get the cards in Unlimited, or they'll get the cards in lower first edition, you know, grades that they can actually afford, and then they'll move on to some of that rarity. But you're top of the mountain people who can afford whatever they want in the hobby, and those are the people who really drive prices up on things, on high-end items. The people who can afford to drop millions and millions of dollars into this hobby on a whim, and it doesn't affect their life at all. Those people are going to be going for all of those high-end trophy cards, and there are only 10 of them in the world, 12 of them in the world, 50 of them in the world, 100 of them in the world, depending on the rarity tier. Okay, last question, and then I'm going to go back to the front of the chat, and we'll have a conversation, guys, all right? Martin Bennett says, hey, Jake, do you have any idea if the Japanese base set has been printed in the same amount as English? The English base set is just everywhere, whereas the Japanese base set is not quite as frequent. I do not know. If anyone has any insight into that, you know, please share it. I'm not the biggest expert on the set cards in Japanese. What's also interesting about the base set cards in Japanese is that, unlike Fossil, Jungle, Rocket, the Neos, where you got a holo in every pack, you do not get a holo in every pack in the base set Japanese, which also is something that makes it a bit more, probably a bit rarer to find those holo cards. They're not quite as prevalent. Another big thing, though, is that, you know, a lot of those cards are probably in Japan, and, you know, whereas the English cards were here, a lot of them. Okay, I'm going to jump to the front of the chat, guys. All right, let's see what you guys are talking about. Jeff Cruz says he appreciates the content and discussions. I appreciate you taking the time, Jeff, to tune in, watch, and engage with us. If you guys didn't ask the questions and engage with me, this would be nothing. Legionist Khan asks, what do you think about the Japanese Pokemon web cards? So some of them have, like, art of very expensive cards. For example, one of the most underrated, one of the most overvalued cards in this whole hobby is the Unicarp, University Magikarp, because that card has that very cheap version of the exact same art. It's not a holo. There were probably 1,000 of that card released versus like 180 Tropical Winds probably, versus you know, when we get into like the higher end, you know, even less. We don't know how many Trophus Kangaskhan's there are. Probably around the Tropical Wind, maybe a little bit rare based on the pop reports. Probably a little bit rare. But that's what that always makes me think. So sorry to those who spent 10, 12,000, whatever on that card, as that card has been going for a lot of money. Now the cool thing about that card is the history and the connection to that, to where to you know, the history of that card is amazing. If it had unique art, and if it didn't have that copy, and if it had less copies in existence, it would be on the same level as those others for sure, but it just doesn't. So you guys talking a little bit about Bandai. Andreas asked me, what do I think about the Bandai Town Map cards? I don't really. They're okay. Not like huge fans, but I think that they're cool. I don't own them actually. I own ungraded copies somewhere, but I don't own them in great condition. They were not a priority for me over collecting like the 1997 set, which was the set that I really went after. That and the 1995 Top Zone. So the 1997, Monster Card S and the 1995 were my two priorities, and then the Magi 1999 was my next. Just because those sets I liked better. It's based on Unlimited a good investment. I feel like there's so much in the market. Yeah, there's a ton in the market, and there's going to be a lot more, particularly sixes, sevens, and eights. I have, and maybe I'll go through the binder on the channel sometime, but I have like a lot of eights and nines sitting in a binder that I have been considering sending, including a lot of like Blastoises. I've only been sending in the Charizards up to this point. Andreas asks, just you feed your grading video. What do you think about Top Zone? Is it worth grading in low grades as well, since the pop report is already low overall, or not so much? No, so definitely not worth grading in low grades. There's a lot of Top Zone out there. There's going to be a lot more graded. Those pop reports have been so low because people didn't want them. I think, even though I own a ton of them, and this is very much against my own interest, I think that they are overvalued and overrated right now. I saw an EV PSA 10 greenback going for $700. Now, maybe that's an inflated shill bid card. I was looking at like who was bidding on it. It was only 2 people, but like that's way too much money for that card, in my opinion. Right now, that card was selling for $30 before all of this, so that's $30 to $700. That's too much of a growth, in my opinion. It's 20 plus times growth. Just seems like a bit much, and I think it's because people don't realize. So many people don't realize that there are just so many more of those cards out there that can be graded, and they're Japanese sellers who have a lot of it still. Okay, now that being said, how many 10s are going to come, we don't know, but there are going to be lots of 9s, there'll be lots of 8s and 7s, and if the value really holds on the 10s, there are tons of 8s and 7s. So be careful. Those cards are not trophy cards. Those cards are not insanely rare. I hope they go to the moon, though. I have a ton of them. Okay. Simonescu says, I personally like the Fan Club Magikarp over the University Magikarp. Yeah, I like the Fan Club Magikarp. Still, it had that art also, right? It had almost the same art in Neo Rev with the Shining Magikarp. I think, except with the reverse, obviously, that where the shining part of the card is, or where the hollow part of the card is. I do like I do very much like the Fan Club Magikarp. I just always felt that card was overvalued as compared to the EV and the Porygon. Even though the EV and Porygon seem to have more copies in existence, the value was always so high on that Magikarp as compared to that, even though it had basically the same art for far cheaper value. And I do get that it's a shining card, but I love those. I also definitely have a very subjective, personal, real love for the art on the EV in particular, and also the Porygon. I think it's definitely the coolest Porygon in the hobby. Porygon needs some love too. E says, what are your thoughts on grader fatigue? I know people who only submit a few cards at a time in their PSA subs because they think after a while graders will just start handing out lower grades unfairly. I don't think so. They also do quality checks. Well, they say they do quality checks at PSA, and so grades are looked over for quick quality check. Although I think that the majority of the quality check they're doing is just making sure that the label's right. They're not actually quality checking the card itself. So that may not be. I may be wrong about that actually. Now that I'm thinking about it on the spot, but I'm not concerned about that. Is it possible? Sure. It's also possible they just get tired and give you better grades. I'm not sure why they would get irritated and give you worse grades. This is their full-time job. Whether they're doing your cards or doing the next person's cards, they're going to be looking at cards all day, every day. But it's an interesting thought. You know, you have to think that they've been looking at thousands of cards already before they've looked at yours, probably in the morning, you know, of someone else's cards. Shakari says, if Pokemon releases Olympic promos for next year, what Pokemon would you like to see featured? For example, Machamp lifting weights, Hitmonchan punching a heavy bag, etc. Honestly, haven't thought about it. I don't know, guys. I'm not that hyped about it for some reason. And probably when I see the cards and I really like them, I'll really want them or I'll feel differently. But I'm not I'm not that into stuff that feels a little bit. I tend not to like the sillier stuff. So if it gets kind of like goofy and cheesy, I'm probably not gonna like that as much. But yeah, we'll see. It'll be interesting. What are you, Tricari? What are you sort of, what are you hoping for, or what are you imagining? And also, like, are other people excited for the promos from that? Are people collecting those modern promos? Is that anyone's main focus here? That sort of stuff, if you feel like answering. Andy May says, what are your thoughts on base set 2? And then I'm going to jump again because I'm losing the front of the chat. So base set 2 is, the thing that base set 2 has going for it is there are less PSA 10s. It's a bit hard to grade. Some of those cards are extremely hard to grade. Very low PSA 10 pops. There probably wasn't, almost certainly wasn't nearly as much base set 2 printed as there was unlimited base set printed. So all of those things favor base set 2. Problem with base set 2 is it's a reprint. It has the 2. It just isn't that original, and it never will be. So that's the problem with it. But I do think that there's interesting value there, and I think for completionists, and there are a number of high-end completionists, they want one of every PSA 10 card, including cards from that. Let's see what else people are talking about. Amjad says, is investing in XY Evolution booster packs a good idea? No. I would not be investing in anything Evolutions. And we've already been seeing some price retrace now. And we're going to see I will guarantee. No, I can't guarantee anything, guys. You know that. But I would be so shocked if we didn't see a huge price decrease on the Evolutions Charizards. And I think that I saw someone buy a PSA 9 Evolutions Charizard for like $1,400. And now I know they're going for I've seen them go for maybe $500, $600 now, maybe $700. So they've halved from that ridiculous purchase. But even that is insane. That card should be valued, in my view, that card is a $50 to $100 card in PSA 9, given how many exist in the world. Okay, and also we've seen a pretty big retrace on the unlimited Charizard, so that should be reflected on all of these and the booster box prices. So we'll see if that takes into effect. There are a lot of people who seem to be very interested in keeping Evolutions up and hyping Evolutions. I think Evolutions has been the biggest beginner trap for anyone in the hobby. And I think that it became the thing that people who weren't in the hobby longer, who knew to kind of how much there was and to stay away from it, it became the thing that became popular for the brand new people. And there were a lot of other people pushing it who I think had it and were trying to pump and dump it, to be completely honest with you. So Electronics says, I feel like high population on a set can help drive prices up. Less population, less people have collections building up, less interest. Yeah, so there's definitely, I think the other thing, and the main issue with them, there not being a lot of cards, and this really is a problem with trophy cards, and part of why they haven't moved up as much, I think, is that they don't sell. They don't come onto the market, and so when anyone wants to buy one, they want to pay what the last person paid, even though it was before all of this hype and before all of this movement. But because the trophy cards weren't consistently selling and slowly laddering up, like anything from from all these set cards, people don't have the price memory that those trophy cards are now 10x'd. So people are paying double for trophy cards when they're paying 10x for set cards. And so that is definitely true where population can really matter. In terms of your specific argument that less population, so there are less people who have less collections, less interest, I think that the fact that there aren't a lot actually creates a lot of demand, a lot of want, and a lot of demand, as long as they're aware of the cards, as long as they see the cards. I think that is, at the end of the day, matters the most. I do agree, though, that if it's so rare and people aren't talking about it on YouTube or showing it and the awareness isn't there, I 100% agree with that part of your argument, that the awareness needs to be really high. And that awareness in large part drives up demand, particularly in this type of market where there are lots of new people in the hobby who don't know what to buy, and it's all about awareness. It's all about what Leonhardt says and what PokeRev says and what these channels are telling people to buy or what product they're showcasing. Generally there's high population on a set for a few different reasons. There's high population because there's value, at least in the short term, because people they think that there's going to be value, or they really like it. I've heard videos where people equate high populations of cards with high popularity of the cards, and that's not true necessarily, and that actually can get you in real trouble. Often, part of why there's so many modern cards being graded isn't necessarily because these sets are going to be so, particularly in the long run, are going to be so popular, but it's because people have so much of it, they can grade so much of it, and they're being told by people that they should grade it. So it's a little bit more complicated than that. But I won't get into it too much here. I'm going to jump back to the bottom of the chat so we can keep going. Altair says, "Hey Jake, did you see the news with Uri Geller and Kadabra?" I did, and I was just in Royalty... Royalty Gaming Pokemon. We were having a conversation in his chat the other day about it, and it's just really funny that happened to correspond. 20 years now. This guy is, and this is the skeptic in me, guys. I think he realizes that Pokemon is getting a lot of heat and demand, and he wanted attention so he could sell more art and get his name out there. And he is using this as a way to basically brand himself and make money. And that's the reason, after 20 years, why all of a sudden he decided that he had a conscience and he was gonna pull it. So, kind of probably a jerk. But it's pretty funny that he's doing that, and we'll see if we get new Kadabra cards, right? That'll be interesting. That'll be pretty cool. You guys know that I'm always gonna call people out. Ugh. And then I get people telling me that I'm the toxic one and that I'm a hater. It's the reality of the internet. All right. I guess the one thing to mention with that is that I think that Kadabra cards and some early Kadabra cards have been underrated, and due to the fact that there aren't as many Kadabra cards, and then Kadabra wasn't allowed to be printed. And I do think that's a small thing, but I think that interestingly over time that could matter. Although the biggest thing that I think people are undervaluing, and that I'll keep repeating on this channel, is first appearance cards. First appearance cards are going to matter a huge amount, and all Pokemon have that first appearance. Okay. What else we got here? So some people... Flex God saying he gets so much hate for saying don't buy evolutions. Yeah. Yeah, you're in a difficult position, Flex Gods, because I know that you want to grow your channel and kind of appeal to the masses and kind of find that balance of really helping new people guide them in. And I think you do a good job. First of all, I think you're a cool, enjoyable guy to listen to, but I think you're doing a good job of trying to bridge that gap, and do it in a way where, yes, you clearly want to grow your channel and are focused on that, but also want to help people and give people accurate information and care about people's well-being enough to say things that are not always popular. But yeah, you're going to have a ton of people who are just trying to hype things up for their own self-interest, whether they're even aware of it or not, or are able to be honest with you or honest with themselves or not. There are a ton of people who came into the hobby and bought up a bunch of evolutions and bought them up at these high prices and saw videos saying that at $500 I should keep buying it. But yeah, OmniPoke says, but Jake, the market is never wrong. Yep, exactly. I heard a big YouTuber say that recently. That we'd go off the market. We don't try and like make smart decisions. We just buy whatever at any point, and the market will never change, and it'll never be a mistake. So it's insane that this hobby, that big channels and big people say things like that in this hobby. Like that would be scoffed at and laughed at in any investing circle with anyone who's serious about trying to invest or make money or predict the future or compete in these types of things. This is all a game. At the end of the day, investing is a gambling game where you are trying to predict the future and you're trying to do it better than everyone else around you. That is what you're doing in essence. Flex Scott says, appreciate the support. Absolutely. Definitely enjoy your channel. People should definitely check it out if they haven't. And if you guys haven't seen, we had the Flex Gods on for an interview. There are a lot of great channels who are on this stream and watch this stream, and it's always great. I check out a lot of your guys' stuff. All right, let's see what people are saying. I'm missing a lot of stuff. The chat is flying. Love to see you guys interacting with each other. Cardinal Gaming says, all of us other channels are here because we respect Jake. I appreciate that, man. I respect you too, I really do. And for me, it's all about understanding and being honest about what we know and what we don't know. Like I have a certain take and a certain perspective based on my investing career, investing in lots of different things and investing in collections, and also being a just hardcore collector and Pokemon lover. There are going to be other people who have different, very valuable lanes, like you, who actually owns an LGS store, deals with a distributor, can talk about the ins and outs of like flipping cards, of selling boxes at margin, and really give people that vital advice on should they be doing that now, can they do that, how to do that. And that's something that I won't talk about on this channel because I would be literally just copying and repeating what you were saying or what other people are saying. So, for me, it's like just like channel, like it's a good thing that there are a lot of different channels with a lot of different voices, and we should all work together and help each other be constructive basically with each other. I think it's okay when we disagree or when we're hard on each other or challenge each other, but I think the goal needs to be to really help people from my perspective and not to grow our own channels fundamentally, and that if for me, I have the luxury of this not being a business and not looking to make income. For a lot of other people, I do understand that this is a business for them, and their YouTube channel is going to be a source of revenue for them, and also, even more importantly, probably a source of helping them make connections so that they can sell cards and grow their reach. And I get that and really respect that. So I do think that there's a balance for a lot of channels, but I'm glad that I have the respect of some other people that I respect. That always feels really good. All right. Let's see. Oh, hey, PokeGal. Nice to see you here. So OmniPoke asks a good question here, which is, Jake, what would be on your wish list to make Pokemon Price a more complete research tool? Yeah, so Pokemon Price, the main issues with Pokemon Price, guys, is that it gets behind. The most interesting and probably useful analytics outside of the specific sale price data that it pulls directly from eBay. The most useful stuff is the larger sort of analytic, the tools that show us like volume of sales last month, volume of sales this month, volume of items that were sold, like this sort of broader market information, and it takes so long for it to gather it seemingly and come out with something new. That being said, it's a free site that they get money off of ad revenue because they put ads on it, but outside of it, it's a free site. and it's the best that we have, but it's very problematic because it's very late, and also it pulls things off of eBay that are very inaccurate. And so I am not a programmer, and I very basic program. I took some robotics and programming courses in college because I did really enjoy them, but I'm not interested in making that site. I've had people reach out to me who are trying to build a much better site. It would be ridiculous if Pokemon stays hot. The market will come up with something better for us because there's such a demand for it, and so many people will be paying $10 to $20 a month. So if you have computing skills and ability, I would be trying to rush it out and be first to market, because there's a huge opportunity if your site actually works. You know, like what Z&G Emporium is doing, and I thank James for doing this, but he's like painstakingly by hand, I think, going through the prices, putting what he estimates are new prices in. And it's like it has some useful information, but like it's very incomplete and doesn't give a lot of the info and the data that would be really important. You know, the other really important stuff is watching the pop reports, how quickly the pop reports grow over time. I think the most accurate and best thing that Pokemon Price does probably are the pop reports and that part of it. So, and they pull that directly from the PSA website, which is hopefully accurate, but it's so much easier to find it on Pokemon Price. So I think we are going to see, and a few of these guys have reached out asking me, do I think that there's a need for this? Do I think there's one for this? And I've been like, absolutely yes. And I will share it with my viewers if it's good, you know, because at the end of the day, I'm not about like, the things that I don't receive money or kickbacks from the things that I are giving to you guys. I just want you guys to actually have like good stuff so you can make the best decisions for yourself. I will be sharing that with you guys, you know, when I hear anything or any developments, because I think it's one of the biggest missing things. And sports and comic books, like they have those things. All right, I'm gonna jump to the bottom again. So, Camby8 asks, sorry if a similar question has been asked, but do you think with the insane amount of vintage breaks, literally at least 1 to 2 daily, prices will slowly increase, or a sharp increase will happen when the dust settles and people realize that there are almost no boxes left? So, the big unknown right now, one of the biggest unknowns in this hobby, and one of the scariest things, so people think that booster boxes are like 100% safe, solid investment because they're only going to ever go up, because vintage booster boxes, because more and more people are going to open them and there's just going to be fewer of them left, right? So it's an oversimplification of what gives those booster boxes value. Those booster boxes also have a good deal of the value. We don't know, it's subjective, but I think we can agree, common sense, that a good deal of the value of those booster boxes comes from the expected value of the cards inside. And so if more and more of those cards get opened and more of them get graded, and let's say the demand in Pokemon doesn't increase, and so the prices on the PSA cards go down, now you have less incentive. The booster boxes should also go down in price first on the surface, because now you can't make as much money on it. It's not worth as much. The contents of the box are not worth as much, 1. 2, you're going to see people not open. The opening channels are not going to be doing that well anymore, because I think, to be honest, there's a fad going on right now, which is that there's a lot of excitement and hype on these booster box openings because of the money, not primarily because of Pokemon. People do like Pokemon because it was their childhood and they loved it, but there's also like, oh my god, that booster box is worth $30,000. I might have those cards. And then you look at those cards and you realize they're only worth $10, but you think they're worth like $5,000 because some YouTuber told you they were worth $5,000. That's happening all over the world right now, all over the country. So the issue is that if the prices start going down, you're going to see the booster boxes, prices start going down of the cards. You're going to see attention move away from Pokemon. People are going to leave, which is going to make the channels less popular, which is going to give them less of an incentive and the ability to make money, and people will not be opening the packs or wanting to pay the high premiums anymore. And the reason they're paying the high premiums are for 2 reasons. The biggest reason is they want the shout out. They're paying really high prices, not because the cards or the packs are worth that much. These booster boxes are not worth this much. Not even close, guys. They're worth only that much because of the shout out that people are getting on these big YouTube channels, because people's whole life revolves around these streaming. These guys make like $40,000 a month, some of them, on streaming. So that is an amazing incentive to get a shout out from a big streamer, which could make your whole career. And you could pay a $2,000 for a first edition Team Rocket booster pack, some stupid amount, but then it could end up making you like millions of dollars in a career somehow, possibly. I mean, that's what these guys are thinking. And as far as the streamer, it gets them a ton of ad revenue. It gets them a ton of more viewers and interest, and they sell the packs at a greater margin, so they make a lot of money. So this whole system I don't think will sustain itself. It's sort of like and that's also part of why I think these guys are pushing the greed. And it's part of when people know that this is not sustainable, there's an intense, we need to keep upping it, we need to keep pushing it, everything is more valuable. And that type of stuff really destroys that in the end. So I think a lot of that's it's a lot more complicated than I hear your average person talking about it online. I mean, it's a much more complicated thing. So we're going to have to see once this is all over, how many of those booster boxes are left, and then how much people care about having the booster box over just the cards. Now, will very, very rich people pay to own a booster box because they want the experience of opening those cards, or having the rarer item, which is that booster box now, because that item is much rarer than the cards that are inside of it, is the booster box, and it is its own item. Like, I'm not saying, so it's all very subjective, and it's going to be very difficult to determine. The other really important piece is that the other reason that people are buying these packs is because they're being told that the prices are going to go up forever. And I hear people say this all the time on all of those hype channels and those big videos. People say, well, the streamer says, well, you didn't get a good pull, but hold on to it for 20 years and you're going to make money. Every video I hear that. And so that is the other thing that is driving it up. And now we could be optimistic and say, these people really believe that. They really believe that, and they're being honest. The cynical part of me says they know that it's a bunch of BS, and they're in it for the money. They're trying to make as much money as they can. They don't care about you and about your wallet. They don't care, or they don't think it's their responsibility to care. And, it's creating a House of Cards situation. And I don't know how it's going to end, but I would be really careful. An average person who doesn't have a channel and can't sell the packs for huge amounts of money I would be very careful buying vintage booster boxes for $20,000-$30,000 right now. All right. I think they're being very overinflated by YouTube and the prices that YouTube influencers are paying because the money that they get back. So I really hope that's clear for everyone. It's very important. So Ernesto Alvarez gave me a super chat. I appreciate that. Hey, Jacob, who are your top 3 illustrators and why? Thanks. Honestly, I have never really thought about it, and I tend not to classify like these are my 3 favorite illustrators. Interesting, on this new Discord thread that I've been in, I talked about this earlier in the chat for those of you who haven't seen, where I've been talking to some more experts than me and people who have been in the hobby longer than me, and then I'm learning things from them. They're really very into specific artists, and so I've been learning a little bit more about specific artists and why they love that artist more than other artists. I think for me, it's always been more about the card than the artist, than the specific artist. So it's not like I always like this one artist card. I tend to like a lot of the different artist cards and choose a variety of them. So it wouldn't be, I could give you 3 that I do like, but it wouldn't be a completely kind of honest, comprehensive answer. It is something that if you want to know, Ernesto, I could think about and maybe realize those patterns in myself, that actually these artists are the ones that I tend to respond to the most, type of thing. But do you have artists that you like the most, Ernesto? I'd be interested to hear. Definitely an interesting question. I also think about, are the artists ever going to become more well-known and more popular, and is that going to be a thing, like people collecting just one artist, and or signatures, or what I hope Pokemon does is that I hope that eventually they're going to do, on rare occasion, they're going to have modern product that has one-of-a-kind hand-drawn like illustrations by these artists, like one of ones that they're going to put in. And I think that that would be really amazing, to pull that in a card size from a pack. I would, as a collector, I would love to have that. I mean, that would be truly special. Pokemillion says streamers can afford to keep paying new high prices. They always charge on top. Yeah, exactly, Pokemillions, but that won't last forever. Yeah, and I don't know how long it will last, though. Like, that's the thing that I keep saying on this channel, right? It's like, we're all like, the best thing you can do is be honest and actually see what's going on, understand the patterns, not fall for the hype and the manipulation and the BS, but understand that doesn't mean that the market is going to behave rationally right now, or behave rationally anytime soon, or that people are going to choose to behave that way because of greed. Greed makes people not think clearly, and also makes people try to get as much as possible, and also makes people lie to themselves and lie to others. And it's just a reality of human nature, and it's not just in the Pokemon market, it's in every single market. So we just don't know how much of that is there and how long it's going to of an effect it's going to take. The good news is, I think that people who watch this channel, for sure, like, you guys are going to be in Pokemon forever, probably for a long time. It's the people who really want to be here forever, love the cards, are drawn to people who talk about the love of the cards, and are thinking about the long term, are not just thinking about how do I make the most money this week in the short term, but are thinking about, like, how do I really build a collection that I love in the long run, and or create a business for myself that is sustainable, and that is sort of respects my customers, and also respects my own appreciation of the cards and my joy for the cards, and finding that balance, which is tricky. So Swami has sent a super chat. I appreciate that. Thank you. I like at Noah question on staff Evo Charizard thoughts. Scarcity priced in. Thanks for your time. These are the best. You're welcome. So I don't even know, like, what's the staff Charizard going for? Can anyone tell me? And I'll take a look at the bottom, and I'll give you guys my reaction to, like, the current price, if anyone knows what the staff Charizard is actually selling for. But in PSA 10, PSA 9 or raw, I don't know. I don't know the exact pop report on it. I'm not that interested in that card. I think that it's kind of cool. The only stamped cards I really like are the Worlds cards and the tournament cards, and the cards that have, like, top 8, the staff stamps I just never responded to as much. I just have to be honest, just, like, as a collector. Let's see if someone answered the question. No one yet. So unfortunately, like, I don't think I'm the best person to ask, because I don't think I really like that card that much, and I do think that there are a lot of people who really like that card. At the end of the day, a decent portion of this is subjective. In terms of, like, the actual scarcity or how rare that card is, again, I'm not really sure. Not an expert on it. Sorry that I can't be more helpful. I guess I'm going to have to do some research on those, because I've been asked those questions a few times, and I feel like I don't have, like, the satisfactory answer. So I will try and do some more research on those staff cards, those staff Charizard cards. I also have been looking more into different staff cards from different events, non-world champion, just to get a better sense of their rarity, how many were actually printed, asking around to see how many actually exist, these types of things. I think that it's very important if you're looking to buy them. So Iverson asks, I was wondering if this was going to come up. How do you feel about the PSA 10 Lugia $129,000 sale? Confirmed, paid for, and legit bidders. Is this sustainable for any card other than Charizard? So for a long time, I've been having debates with people that base set first edition was way overrated compared to Neo Genesis first edition, and that just old guards in the hobby just always kind of poo-pooed anything that wasn't base set first edition for a long time, and that Neo was rarer. It had just as cool a Pokemon. I think a lot of these Pokemon will be just as beloved, or almost as beloved and popular in the long run. And that anyone who's really going to stick in Pokemon and be interested in Pokemon is going to want to collect that generation too, the second generation. Now, it's not the first generation. I don't think it should be as expensive as base set, but due to the fact that I do believe it is significantly rarer and scarcer Neo Genesis than first edition base. You know, I believe that, based on the pop reports so far. Now, we'll see over time if that's true. It may not be true. Clearly, I would be absolutely shocked if there were ever as many Lugia PSA 10 first editions as there are Charizard, base set first edition holos graded. I would be pretty shocked. So what I explain to people is it's not like Alpha in Magic, where Alpha had so much less than Beta and had so much less than Arabian Nights and all these other sets, and also clearly had the biggest chase cards and the most favorite Pokemon. I'd say Lugia is one of the most favorite Pokemon in all of Pokemon. That's the rookie card. That's an amazing art. I think that the price increase is crazy. Do I think that the evaluation is crazy compared to the Charizard? No. I absolutely don't. I think that the Charizard going for 300,000 versus the Lugia, which is rarer, going for 129,000 seems a lot more reasonable than the Lugia going for 10,000 and the Charizard going for 300,000. To me, as a Pokemon lover, as someone who I think gets the market, gets what collectors really want, and isn't just driven by Charizard hype. But the reality is that a lot of things are driven by hype, and a lot of investors look towards hype, and they want to buy the Charizard because the Charizard is the safest, most established Pokemon, and anyone from every other hobby knows Charizard, whereas they may not know Lugia or know that people care about Lugia or like Lugia. So those are my thoughts on it. The percentage growth on that card has been insane. Like, we're talking about probably, that card was what, under 10,000? The Charizard was going for 40,000. So the Charizard went from 40-ish thousand or 50,000 to 300,000. So that's a, 6 times growth or something. This card has gone for over a 12, 13, 14 times growth in the same time period. So it's been a much better buy. And so this is also something that people are not honest about, which is what actually has moved the most. Where actually was the value all this time? And a lot of people got this stuff wrong because even experts, they listen to other experts and they go off of hype rather than like, what do I want? What is rarer in the world? What is actually more valuable to me? These sorts of things. And really asking that question and looking at it and then putting your money where your mouth is and taking a risk. And once someone pays $129,000 for it, now people are going to be like, oh, maybe all this time it was more valuable. Because people follow the money rather than they follow their own intuition about what should be valuable. Those sorts of things. Now, all that being said, humongous, unbelievable growth on that card, right? For that expensive of a card to move that much. A lot of other cards have moved that much, have moved more than that, as well. So it's part of the time right now, now, was that a crazy buy, and is the next one going to sell for like quite a bit under? It's possible. It's possible there was only one other buyer, who's willing to pay that much, and they just bid each other up because they absolutely wanted that card. And the next time that only that buyer will be there, and no one else wanted to pay that much. No one else was even going to pay $50,000 for it, $40,000 for it, which probably would have been a more understandable price point given the growth in a lot of things. So what I would say, guys, is if that sale's legit and that sale holds, Neo Genesis, the rest of that set then becomes undervalued. Now, generally, it's not very good to think in those terms, to think in those relative terms, and that's a big trap that people fall into. But that, as I was preaching on this channel early on, I've been preaching on, these things for a long time, like, the rarity and difficulty to grade of the 10s from, like, Neo Discovery. Neo Discovery, just like this hated on, unbelievably slept on set with Espeon and Umbreon and Scizor and Houndour, and like all these like really cool cards in it. Tyranitar, that Tyranitar card in PSA 10, these are beloved Pokemon that are all second tier Pokemon now. Like if you look at modern, like what are the top Pokemon? Charizard's the top, and then probably under that is maybe Blastoise, but also Lugia, Rayquaza, Espeon, Umbreon, Mewtwo, Mew, in there. It's like those are the ones that everyone wants. Tyranitar, a lot of Tyranitar collectors. So you got to think for yourself. Don't follow the prices. Trust your own gut. Do your research. That's how you really make really strong, good purchases. So, all right. Proverb says, when YouTubers say Pokemon's the biggest franchise in the world, so these cards will keep going even higher, do you find it disingenuous since the cards are just a slice of said franchise? So I think the fact that it's the biggest franchise in the world does really matter, and I think that it shows you the strength of the Pokemon brand. And it's such a strong brand, and it just connects with so many kids, and it stays with kids throughout their lives. People who collected Pokemon when they were a kid and really loved it, like, really respond to it and love it as an adult. It has the same type of response that, like, Harry Potter fans have. Like, there's something about it that just really connected to kids, and so that really does show the strength of the brand and is important for Pokemon cards. I will say that the reason that one thing that can happen is that it can funnel people who play like the video games or play the other sorts of things can be funneled into the Pokemon card collecting, although I think it's unlikely they're going to be hardcore collectors because they probably would have been collecting it already. But there are going to be some people who are going to get funneled into it, or at least like rediscover it is probably even the highest amount. Like you see, for example, like with any new video game, a new movie release, a new, the big one obviously was Pokemon Go. It reminds people, it's an awareness thing. It reminds people for their love of Pokemon, and it reminds them of their childhood, and they loved collecting those cards, and they say, okay, what are those cards doing today? They look up the card prices. They see that there's this growing, thriving community. They start watching PokeRev. They become enthralled. They love it, and it goes on and on from there. Now, people saying that Pokemon's the biggest franchise so that it's going to keep going up in value isn't an argument. It's stupid, right? Like, it's a reason that it's popular and that it's valuable now. Like, these things have already been... I think people are inflating the value of Pokemon right now. We're way on the other side. We're way more into Mania. Like, there's nothing that hasn't been considered in terms of the positive side. To me, it's the negative side that isn't being considered and is reflected in the prices as much. Although I think we're seeing that now with some of the retraces. Finally, some of the counterpoints are being reflected more in the prices. So that's what I'd say about that. But yeah, I mean, it would definitely irk me. Any YouTuber who says that Pokemon's going to keep going up forever, or it's just or like they're sure it's going to keep going up and that it's going to double again, they're either like a naive young person who doesn't have experiences with markets, or they don't care and they're just saying whatever they want to say, and they're manipulating, or some combination. It's just the reality. Okay. Let's see what people are talking about. James Chris saying there's been a TCG player for almost 15 years and just got into collecting. Oh, cool, man. What have you been collecting? Like, what have been your go-tos? And also, do you find you're attracted to like playable cards or all cards in general? Be interested to hear. See what other people are saying. So Proverb says, all right, Greenwald says, sorry, hi, Jake. Thanks for all the info. You may have discussed this, but thoughts on grading Japanese Gym Hero challenge cards. What's your sense of the Pops or demand for these, speculation for the future? Okay, so, yeah. So, I don't know how many Japanese cards there are going to be. These cards were selling for almost nothing. They were selling for like $20, $30 in PSA 10 until recently. Even the Charizard was selling for like $60, $70 in 10. So they've seen huge growth. They've really been shilled and pushed up by certain streamers, one I'm not going to talk about, and people selling packs for way over the value that they should be from all of these sets. Rocket always seems to be the one that I think is the most ridiculous, but definitely these gym sets also. All that being said, it's phenomenal art. It's historic. It's genuinely vintage. Japanese cards are easier to grade generally than English, but they still have massive centering issues. They're not easy to grade, and that's one distinction that really needs to be made. With anyone who tells you that Japanese cards are easy to grade and that you're almost certainly going to get a 10 out of pack, that's not true. They're still difficult to grade. It's just easier than English. Plus, you get a holo every pack, so there are going to be a lot more of them. In terms of like how many there are compared to English, in the world, I just don't know the answer to that. I think anything, particularly anything outside of 10s, anything 9s and 8s, I'm sure that there are so many in Japan still just sitting in shops, I would imagine. Like, I don't think it's all been cleared out by Westerners. That's my guess. Yeah. Love that Amazon is a Pokemon channel now. I didn't know. That's funny. Proverb says, what do you think the long-term effects of the recent card boom might be? There's a full generation of kids experiencing this and taking part in card openings on YouTube/Friends. Yeah, I think that it's definitely it's going to get some kids interested in Pokemon, but I do think that most of the kids that I know, they're more into Fortnite, they're more into video games, they're more into the streamers and the personalities of the streamers than they are into the cards themselves necessarily, and it's not... They do really like the cards. I don't know. I'm not a kid, and I don't know exactly how the Mania of today compares to the Mania of when we were kids. I know that for us, it was like you were cool if you had a Charizard. Like, you were the cool kid on the playground. Like, everyone wanted this. It was such an intense Mania. I think that certain kids and certain families, I'm sure, feel that way. Is there as much of that? I'm not sure. I wonder how much of it's just driven by adults rediscovering their childhood and then sharing that with their kids, and I'm sure that the kids will connect with that and want to collect and want to do it with next generations and these sorts of things. I just don't think we know how much that's going to be, and I think that unfortunately, the vast majority of that has already been priced into the market. I think people are paying or were paying $500 for an Evolutions booster box because they were imagining that a kid in 20 years would buy it for $1,000 or $2,000, and so that's where the Mania, like, people are taking best case scenarios and pricing it into the current market today because it's that fear of missing out and that greed, instead of realizing, like, that's 20 years from now, that's 15 years from now, that's 12 years from now. Why am I paying prices that are hopeful prices for 15 years from now today? That makes no sense. So that's what I would say about the prices. You have to be careful. Any thought that you have or that I have is likely already been considered by the market, and so is likely already been priced into the market. So then you have to figure out, do I disagree with the general market sentiment, and then am I going to use that to gain an advantage on other people, or do I agree with the general market sentiment, and then I'm really just buying it at what I think the value is already, because likely that's already been priced in. All right. Okay, I'm going to do another 13 minutes, and then we're going to end for today. Let's see what else people are saying. People are talking about the tops in 1995. Yeah, so... Yes, so that's right. It's branded and developed in 1995, but it wasn't released in 1995. There's some question and speculation as to when it was exactly released, and different people think different things, and the order in which it was released, compared to, like, some people actually think the 1996 set was the first set, and that this 1995 set was actually released after that set, slightly after that set. I don't really know. Let's see what else people are saying. Proverbs says, thanks, Jake, for the great answers. You're very welcome. Thank you for the great questions. Those are definitely things to be considering and thinking about. They're two of the key things if you're going to be in the game for the long term. And it's the type of thing where it's like patience. Like, you don't have to decide how much kids are going to love this in 20 years today. You know, there's this intense fear of missing out, which is part of the mania that's going on right now. If you really have faith in this market, you can buy later and you can see how things go. And, you know, it's the get rich quick mentality of like, if I don't buy now, I'll never buy and I'll miss out on all the profit that gets people. Solemn Yu-Gi-Oh says, I'm aware of your Pokemon collecting and even some sweet Bandai Yu-Gi-Oh cards, Lord of the Rings, and even Harry Potter, but do you own any MTG or even the Konami Yu-Gi-Oh cards? So I don't own any of the Konami Yu-Gi-Oh cards, and I own, I think, one box of Magic the Gathering somewhere. One sealed booster box. I have played the game before, and I do like playing the game. It's fun. I really like playing games, and Magic the Gathering was an awesome game. One of the best card games I've played. I really like Magic the Gathering, and I really like the Middle Earth game. Is also really cool in terms of its playability. Some people talking about... Guess I'll try and answer a few more questions. I'm getting a little bit tired. I am going to end this stream on time tonight. I guess I can go to 5:05 because I started the stream 5 minutes late. I can do that for you guys. Okay, take a deep breath, answer a few more questions, take a sip of tea. Pokemillion says, thanks for your time in the stream. You are welcome, sir. Thank you for being here. Really... Can't say it enough how much I appreciate you guys coming and showing up because it's fun to talk Pokemon. And I love reading the chat and hearing what other people say. And sometimes I actually rewatch the streams with me on mute because I don't want to hear myself ramble on necessarily. But I just to read through the comments and see the conversations you guys are having, and I get insight from people all the time. There are a lot of like really experienced, smart people who watch this channel and who give a lot of great feedback and a lot of great points in the discussion section. Definitely my dream for this channel is to have a community of very experienced people who could disagree with each other, argue with each other, you know, and make sort of each other better and refine our thinking, you know, all for the love and enjoyment of the hobby. Okay, a couple more questions here. Let's see. Max K says, hey Jake, I recently started to collect unlimited WotC Hollows in PSA 6 to 8. Do you think the smart move would be for me to wait 6 to 12 months for all this PSA backup from this year to hit the market? Wait, so I recently started collecting... Oh, yeah, to finish your collection, you're saying. I do. You know, nothing is a sure thing. You know, so what I would do, Max, is I would... My personal thought process, if I was in your position, okay? And I really wanted these cards for my collecting goals, for example. And I can compare it to things like Yu-Gi-Oh! Right now, where I'm paying prices that I feel good about but not great about. Because I really want the cards, right? I think that it's okay to take a middle ground, too. Look for deals. Stop being quite as aggressive, maybe as you were, and look for deals. And if you see cards go for quite a bit under value, or you can buy them in lots where maybe you can grade them yourself or you can get them at a cheaper value, those are the types of buys I would make. As you've seen on my channel, I've bought about 15 to 20 things over the last 3 months, and I feel very good about those purchases. Even if they retrace 40 to 50%, I will still have made a considerable amount of money on those because I was very patient. So even within this market, you can still find deals. It's just a lot harder. So I would say be patient. There's never a sure thing in Pokemon. And although it doesn't seem rational to think that the market will double again because Logan Paul already did his thing, you know, I think that if the media picks up on it even more, it's possible the awareness will spread even further. But I would imagine most people our age at this point have heard, or a decent amount of the people who really love their cards, who might really get back into it, are now in the hobby. again, total speculation. It could be only a small percent. It could only be half. There could be a lot more still out there, and that could raise the prices on those unlimited holos. That being said, like, there's a big risk in that, and it's we do know, and what I can tell you for sure is that the pops are going to grow massively on those cards, particularly if the prices remain high. And so the demand is going to need to really, really grow in order to sustain the prices on those cards, or the market will eventually start to get flooded and people will start to undercut each other to try to sell them. So if I were you, Max, I would look for deals, I would be patient, and I would wait for a lot of that product to come on. But it's going to depend on your collection goals, how upset you'd be if you never got them, and also your budget and how much money you have, you know, and how much you're willing to overpay for things and that's okay, or how much you're willing to pay for something, see it retrace half and feel okay about it. All of those things are personal decisions, but I think that I wouldn't be buying right now if I didn't feel comfortable with that possibility. Okay, so hopefully I hope that helps, Max. But it's a great question, and it's a question that a lot of people are feeling and wondering about. And there are going to be a number of people, Max, like you, who are going to help absorb the new supply, who are still working on completing those collections, and so are going to be buying those cards, which will help them not implode quite as much. So Josh Harris says that's why the big channels collect sealed boxes, because they know the prices on the cards will most certainly drop in price and all the openings they do. Yeah, so that will affect, as I explained though earlier, I'm not sure if you were here, that will also affect the prices of the boxes too. So people like Z&G, PokeRev, they are businesses, and they open their product and sell them at high prices and make margins and make money on them. So they're actually, if you look at what they're doing, they're not holding the product. They're holding some of the product. PokeRev has made a ton of money, and so I think because of that, he can also afford and makes a ton of revenue on his membership and all of the pack openings he does, and makes a ton of money on Modern that he can afford to hold the rarer, scarcer vintage stuff, or at least some of it. And he's, I definitely believe 100% a genuine lover and genuine collector, like, and absolutely loves the cards personally too. And so I think would be really sad probably if he didn't have, if he opened all of those vintage booster boxes and never got them. I think he's a vintage booster box sealed collector and does love them. But I think that from a business standpoint, you can see what they're doing is they're opening and selling them, which is the smart move right now, in my opinion. All right. Rupa Kondo asks, are level X cards a good investment? I don't know. It's complicated. They're good because so far they have pretty low pops, but they may not always. Are they worth grading? I would say that they are worth grading in 9 or 10. I would not grade your 8s yet unless it's a particularly popular one, unless you want to do it for yourself. That's my personal opinion. Definitely other people will tell you grade 8s and lower. I don't think so. I think it makes no sense. As you saw in my last grading video, I think patience is a virtue. Patience and calm. Okay. Oh, Josh Harris says, Jake, don't hate me, but I bought the Balrog box set that was on eBay. Nice buy, man. Did you buy that's awesome. Did you buy was it 3,500 did I see? That's really funny. Yeah, I just didn't know how to price it. Like, I really wanted it, but it just seems so expensive for, like, because the problem with the Balrog set also is that it's fixed. You know, like, they're fixed cards in it. It's not even like a booster box where you're not sure what you're going to get, so you know exactly what you're going to get, so it takes a little bit of the excitement out of it, and it's just so much money. But the Balrog cards are so cool, and it's so hard to find those things. So that's really cool that you bought that, though. Congratulations on that awesome purchase. So some people talking about how much they would pay for the... Yeah, I mean, definitely, you know, asking, I would recommend, you know, asking me questions is great, but also asking chat questions. when you're here, I think is great. There's a lot of Pokemon knowledge here, and it's really great to hear other people's perspectives. I enjoy that too. So some people in the chat right now are asking, like, you know, what how much would you pay for like an unlimited base set right now? Cardinal Gaming says, people grading the Hidden Fates. Tin promos make me sad. Yeah. You know, I think they're the people who are grading it that are going to try to really quickly flip it and sell them for like $30 each, and you're going to get people buying them because people are telling them it's like a great investment, this sort of thing. And there, as I said, there's a grading mania right now where anything that has a PSA 10, particularly anything with the Charizard, has to go for like at least $50 or something. And it's just silly. It's just silly. And it's not going to hold up. If we've learned anything from any other hobby, it's not going to hold up when there's that much produced and when it's that massive and all of that minty. You know, so you're throwing it, you bought the card, and now you're throwing in more money to get it graded, and you're basically throwing good money after bad, in my opinion, unless you can get a greater fool, you know, greater fool theory here, Cardinal Gaming, unless you can get the greater fool to buy it from you. But I don't like practicing business that way. I'm not sure how you feel, but it's like, how would you feel if you knew all of that, but you knew you could quickly grade them and then flip them all? You know, it's tough. I mean, it's like, well, on the one hand, it's like, if you having bill issues and you need to buy food for yourself and you need to pay for your family, I get it. Like, I get why you would do that, but, you know, I hope that's not the norm for people. Team Trevor says, anyone have a fairly inexpensive yet enjoyable Harry Potter TCG box they'd recommend for opening? Yeah, so the best one to buy, you can still get it for $58. It's doubled in price. I believe there's still some for sale on Hillside Gaming where they had a lot of these boxes. You can buy the Quidditch Cup one. That's the cheapest one. The other ones are all going to cost you hundreds now. They've really gone up in price. Since I've been talking about them on the channel, no. I pushed that. No, a lot of people were already aware of them and buying them. And I honestly, I was pretty sure that they were going to go up in value. I just didn't want to say it to push the value up on this channel, but I had heard lots of people wanting to speculate on it. I don't think buying a lot of Harry Potter is a very smart business strategy, but I, in this climate, knew they would go up because they're really cool boxes. There aren't that many out there, and they were just being bought up left and right from places like Hillside Gaming. There's just too much interest, too much demand, and there are a lot of people doing buyouts. And the buyouts have been very effective. The buyouts have worked. The buyouts have raised the prices and have made things more interesting. And this is the thing about market manipulation and buyouts, guys. When people do a buyout, irrationally, they, like, now that the prices have doubled, people now are more interested. And this is the exact same thing that happened in Pokemon. So you have these big people who do buyouts. It raises the price on something. This is something that someone could have gotten for a very cheap price, but now the person looks at that item, says, oh, now I really want it because it's doubled in price, even though it's the exact same item. And this is where people are buying for greed, or buying because other people are telling them what's valuable instead of finding what's valuable for themselves. So on this channel, I really preach. So for me, those Dragon Ball cards that I was showing in the other video, very undervalued. In terms of rarity, scarcity, that to me, I see the value there. Now, does that mean anyone else ever will? Maybe, maybe not. We don't, you know, I have no idea. Yu-Gi-Oh! Bandai cards, same thing. Rarity, scarcity, difficulty to grade, difficulty to find, awesome, amazing art, important to my childhood history. I see value in there. I'm not waiting for people to tell me, go buy those because they're a good investment. Go buy those because people are going to want them. I'm not waiting for them to double in value to then do it. And so this is what's happened in Pokemon, is that a lot of people listening to a lot of other people hyping things up. And it happens in everything. So if the one thing you learn from this whole Pokemon experience is to think for yourself and collect and invest in things that you understand and where you understand the value. You don't need to ask me, you don't need to ask someone else, where is the value, right? Now, I think the good questions are asking me, why is this valuable? Why are people doing this? And because I might have greater insight than you, because I've been in it longer and I'm more engaged, or I have more friends doing it, I can explain to you why this item is valued or why it's overvalued based on the facts and help you with that. But then you should be making those value judgments for yourself based on the objective data. Felix F says, "Does it bother you if we ask the same question more than once? Don't want to be a nuisance." So I think that it certainly doesn't bother me. I think if I like felt like someone was doing it on purpose, it would bother me. The reality of YouTube, and this is one of the challenges of YouTube, is that there are going to be new people on every video asking the same question that maybe someone asked last week, and there are going to be people coming in and out of the stream, and they didn't know that someone asked the same question earlier. And so sometimes I don't answer the same question if it's been repeated, and I'll say, go watch the video earlier when we said that. But I definitely don't get upset with the person. I don't think people are intentionally asking the same question twice or asking a question that they don't really want the answer on. And I get why people ask me, when we're talking about like the crystal ball questions, like what exactly is going to happen. Like I get why people are asking those. I'm going to try not to be, it doesn't annoy me that people are asking them, but I'm not gonna be able to answer them fully. I'm only gonna be able to, give you the answers that I've been giving people. So, but it's a good question. No, it doesn't bother me. If something bothers me, I'll let you guys know. I won't keep it to myself. I'm not a passive guy. I tend to, when I have an issue with something, I tend to verbalize it and try and solve it and work on it rather than keeping it inside. Oh, and in terms of if I didn't see the question, you can post it again, because I am reading through things and I'm not intentionally skipping things. It's sort of like I'm just trying to often go to the beginning of the chat so we stay relevant. Hey, Jonathan B., good to see you too. Radazor says, yep, same thing across all markets. Price increases the best marketing strategy. Price trumps fundamentals in regards to hype. Yes. And we see this in businesses and advertising and all sorts of things. Sometimes when companies, like big companies, sell their products for lower, people think that those products aren't good. And they actually spend more money for an inferior product. And this is human psychology. And we see this all the time. And companies use, like they have teams working on how to get us to buy things and get us to pay the most money that they possibly can. And so as a consumer, first of all, try not to be so addicted to physical things. And there are more important things in life than physical things like love and family and connection and, and your ethics and your values and your integrity are so much more important, because all these other things are kind of a manipulative game that can easily be taken from you at any time. But the best thing you can do to defend yourself is be aware of that. And people who call me toxic or call other people toxic, to be aware of, who are aware of those sorts of fundamentals and are aware of what other people are doing, are one of two things. They're either genuine and they think that they're not doing that, and they like to think that everyone is their friend and is trying to help them and isn't trying to take advantage of them or trying to make money off of them. And there are certainly plenty of people, hopefully your friends and family and people that you really trust who wouldn't take advantage of you, but strangers and companies I wouldn't put into those categories. Strangers online, and you have to be really careful. And so, I completely agree, Radazor. I think we tend to see eye to eye on a lot of things. So the best way to contact me, Felix, is through Instagram right now. I do have an E4 also. I believe it's like Jacob MR9. I think that's it. I don't really go on E4 too much anymore, though, as much as I used to. I've been more in some specific Discords that I've been preferring. Cardinal Gaming says, yeah, those businesses out there sure are shady, huh? The reality, and in Cardinal Gaming you can speak to this, is that when you run a business, there are ways to be a businessman where you have ethics and you have integrity and you build your business on the idea that you will be successful if you provide value and a service to the people you are selling to. So there are those types of businesses and business practices, and then there are the type of businesses and business practices where instead of actually making anyone's life better, you are trying to manipulate, by giving them something that they really want or that actually improves their lives, you are manipulating them to do something that is harmful, that is actually harmful to them. And let's be real, there are a lot of companies out there that a lot more of what they do is on that manipulative bully side. And if we really asked how much value are they really giving people, maybe not that much. Maybe they're getting more value from us than we are from them. But yet they exist anyway, and those have to do with flaws in human nature and flaws in our own ability to take care of ourselves and protect ourselves, and people willing to take advantage of others. But you got to be careful. You got to be careful when we talk about any individual. You have to be careful saying that any individual is a bad person, or is unethical, or is being intentionally unethical, or intentionally manipulative, and also it's almost never very black and white. We all have shades of gray. We all have manipulative impulses. We all have impulses to be greedy, to be selfish, to make more money than the person next to us, to maybe put our ethics aside, to take the easier route, these sorts of things. And some people care more and work harder to develop not taking the easier route in life. And others don't. Others don't value that, or don't care, and view it as a gain, as basically the ends justify the means, basically in all cases, on the one extreme. And so when you're engaged in a market like this, and I think bringing it back to Pokemon, and you're engaged in an unregulated, open market like this, you have to be careful. You have to be careful with people's intentions. What do you think, Cardinal Gaming? I'd be really interested, as someone who owns a business, and whatever you'd be willing to share, are the ethics of... Do you think a lot about the ethics of running your business and how you make a living for yourself and your family? How that is clearly your ethical responsibility as a man and as a human being, for sure. But also, do you ever feel guilty selling to people, or that things are overinflated, or how do you deal with the scalping? Do you ever not sell product to make more money? That sort of stuff. Also, it'd be great to have you on the channel, man, at some point if you want to talk about it more in detail. I'm going to be doing a few interviews coming up, going over some of these business practices, and so that you guys can see more of the thinking for people who run businesses, sell cards, and what they're doing. Let's see if Cardinal Gaming is still here, has something to say on that. Outside of that, once we wrap that up, I am going to end the stream soon. Yeah, Mike says, do you struggle to sell your cards? I never want to sell anything, even multiples. I just fall in love with everything. Me too. Because I really only buy cards that I really love, that I really like, that I'm really drawn to. So I don't see any more. Okay, here. Cardinal Gaming says, absolutely. I think about it a lot, and how the larger market out there is willing to pay more for product, and my more loyal local customer guys don't want to pay the higher prices. Yeah, exactly. And that's something that is going to every person, in your situation, I'm sure, is going through and thinking about. Tough things, Tough things to think about there. Tough things to try to figure out what to do. So let's see. Maybe I'll answer one or two more of these questions, and then I will close the stream for the day. Thank you all for watching and engaging as always. Let's see here. Evan Kreshner asks, would you invest in PSA 10 Japanese Pokemon cards? So I've talked quite a bit about Japanese cards today. So it's all about the price you can get them at. Yes, there is investability in vintage Japanese. Are most Japanese PSA 10s, I think, overvalued right now? The set cards, yes. So, but theoretically, yes, they are. They are collectible. Have you talked about the new Japanese set with like 300 SRs? I have not really yet too much on this channel. You know, I talked a lot about how there would be a Hidden Fates 2, and we're going to see, and there's going to be a Hidden Fates 3 probably, and there's going to be more and more, and we're going to see how that affects. Cardinal Gaming says, also, I'd love to talk with you and Rafi anytime. Yeah, we should definitely have you on, man. Do you have an Instagram? You probably do. I'll reach out to you there. I'll find you and reach out to you, and we'll figure. We have I think 3 interviews coming up, but we should definitely do something after that. Would love to get more of your insights on the distributor stuff and on what you're doing in the market and what you think about everything from your perspective. Would love that. So let's see. One last question here. I've also been collecting the LOTR TCG, the cards after the Middle Earth CCG. So I have not been going after those, Josh. I have not been as interested in those. All right, so I am going to end the stream there. All right, so I want to thank you all for joining today, and I will be back next Sunday. We're gonna try and do at least one of these a week. Rafi's definitely gonna join at some point. We're gonna get him back on the channel. He is not gone forever, and we still really want to make videos together when we can figure out our schedules. And it's been great seeing y'all. And sorry about these last few questions that people are now putting. I'm not gonna answer those, so I do have to run. But I will go into them in more detail, and I can answer some of those questions next time. Okay, all right. Thank you so much for joining, and I'll talk to you all again next week.